Good afternoon, everyone. I think we have a quorum, so I'll call the meeting to order. If we could just, we have some new faces and we have a guest, so maybe we just go around quickly and introduce ourselves and what we're affiliated with. I'm Bob Rulli. I'm the Director of Community and Economic Development for the town of Bridgewater.
Jason Hunter, our Executive Director of the Mass High Grid Workforce Board, the Vice Chair and the Assistant.
Good afternoon, I'm Laura Buckley, I'm from the Mass Higher Cultural.
I'm John Murray, I'm from the Mass High and Greater Brockton Career Center.
Stephanie Danielson, the Director of Planning and Economic Development for the town of Easton. I'm Mary Ellen DeFrias, Administrative CEO of Yakron. I am Stephanie and I'm Associate Director of the Operations Division at Midwest University. Natalie Keene, Executive Director of the Brockton Development Authority. I am Cindy Prendergast, Director of Neighbor Works Brockton Office and a Brockton resident.
Rick Jordan, town of Avon planner.
Contact and Development Business Association.
Brian Salser, Internet of CPC.
Visual Matt with the Brockton Area Transit Authority for Paul Yamano, Senior Grants Development Specialist for Oconee Planning.
Good morning, Matt Dyer, Senior Transportation Planner here.
And Nick Giaquinto, Senior Economic Development Planner for OCPC.
Lynn Tokarzik, Government Tax Incentives Consultant, Business Development Strategies.
Don Sullivan, Economic Development Director of CPD.
And Megan, do you want to just introduce yourself?
No, sure. Hi, Megan Fournier, Senior Executive Assistant for OCPP. I'm just behind the wall.
And last but not least,
Hi, Lisa Green, Town Administrator for Hanson.
thank you.
We have people online too.
John, are you there?
Yes, I am here. John from the city of Brockton, senior planner.
Oh, thanks, John.
No problem.
Nick circulated the minutes from the February 7th meeting. Does anyone have any edits or comments? If not, we will entertain a motion to accept the minutes. Motion, is there a second?
Second.
Second, we'll just do a voice vote, all in favor? Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Moving on to the next agenda item number 3, we have a presentation from Lynn, who just introduced herself. I'll let you just say what you're speaking.
Well, good morning, good afternoon again, everyone. Lynn Tokarzik, Government Tax Incentives Consultant for Business Development Strategies. And I'd like to thank Nick for inviting me here today, as well as a very good friend of mine, Mary Waldron. Mary and I go way back. Because I actually used to work for the governor's office way back when, and I was with Ernst & Young. It's all about tax incentives, negotiating tax incentives. So I was negotiating tax incentives all around the country. And then launched business development strategies. And I can't believe, I don't know where the time has gone. We're celebrating our 20th year in business. It's just, you know, it's like a journey. It's many, many chapters. So but again, it's always nice to connect with the Old Colony Planning Council. I have been here as a speaker a couple of times over the past 20 years, because we've worked with lots of companies in the region. And so again, so business development strategies, we're a government tax incentive. We help companies save cash if they have real estate expansion plans, they're trying to make corporate real estate decisions, they need to create jobs, retain jobs, and grow their businesses. So we'll share some of the stories also. A recent project we just worked on in the city of Brockton as well. But some of our clients, we're very proud of our track record. All of these deals that we represent have to go before, whether it's town meeting, select board, mayor, city council, you know, no easy task. But we're very proud of our track record. Some of our clients include Moderna. We've assisted them 3 times in the town of Norwood, bringing life sciences, you know, south of Boston. That was huge. We work with companies like Analog Devices, Waters Corporation, Lakeland Ice Spring, Horizon Beverage, Farm Linen Service, which was one of our very first projects, here working in the city of Brockton. We work with Paris Glass and Avon, Amran, in Randolph. We work with Cape Cod Lumber when they expanded. So lots and lots of companies over the years. So it's always great, to be in this region. Congratulations to Nick, to you, Nick, and your team for all the growth and and all your efforts and keeping this region competitive, because that's what the business community is looking for. They want to locate in communities that will welcome them, that have all of the appropriate infrastructure. So let's move on. We have a brief slide presentation. And then we're going to, I'm also briefly going to talk to you about some market trends, what we're seeing, where companies looking, what types of industries are looking. So, but anyway, about business development strategy. And again, we help companies if they're trying to make real estate decisions. Now, they're in a building of 50,000 square feet. Now they might need 75,000 square feet, 100,000 square feet. Obviously, they start working with the real estate brokerage firm. Not a specialist. But they are, when they realize that they need to look for space, whether it's leasing the building, buying a building, the price tag is going up and they're thinking, are there any ways that we can reduce our overall project costs? So with that, we help companies identify, negotiate, and secure state level tax incentives. And it's bringing financial results so companies can move forward and turn these expansion projects into a reality. That's really what it's all about. And so on the right, the primary industries that we're working with are manufacturing, life sciences, innovation, technology, corporate headquarters, high-end distribution. Why are we working with these type of companies? Because these are the growth sectors in Massachusetts. The administration, as you know, is very focused on growing, obviously life sciences and the like. And companies sometimes are not aware of these programs, these tax incentive programs. How would they be? They're so busy running their manufacturing businesses, their distribution, their technology businesses. And when they realize again that the cost, and over the past 3 years, obviously since COVID and beyond, there's been a surge in construction costs, renovation costs, with interest rates, with inflation, with payroll. It's the full gamut. And actually, in a lot of developers, we represent the end user, the tenant, whether it's the manufacturing company or the life science company, but we end up working with a lot of developers. And developers are finding it, somewhat challenging now to access financing. Next slide, please. So this program, known as the Economic Development Center Program, this is a key economic development tool. This is the program that we represent. And this is the program that companies are applying for. And it's administered by the Mass Office of Business Development. And it's focused on job retention, job creation, and private investment. And since January of 2010 through June of 2023, I think the numbers are pretty compelling. Companies have invested cumulatively 15 billion. Yes, that's with AB dollars of private investment to construct new buildings, to renovate buildings, whether they're leasing or ownership. And this program has been up and running since 1993. It was enacted by the state legislature. So again, 1993, and way back when I first started with the state, there were only 35 communities that could offer these tax incentives. Well, fast forward, the legislature felt that they wanted to make sure that every corner of the Commonwealth had they were on the same playing field. It wasn't fair that only 35 communities could offer this and not the rest of the state. So now, as a result, every community can offer this. Of course, it's focused on industrial and more commercial property. And as we know, out Western Mass, a lot more bedroom communities, so they wouldn't be eligible anywhere. Next slide. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the project eligibility and what type of companies are eligible to apply. They have to meet certain criteria, state criteria. And so it's a company that could be relocating from one community to another, or a company that has plans to expand on site, or to renovate an existing facility, or to attract them out of state. But we all know that, especially the towns that are here today in the city, that you always want to nurture your existing businesses first, and then attract from out of town, out of state. Because if those companies ever left, that would be devastating. You lose jobs and lose employers. You know, a lot of the companies we work with are very community involved. They engage with local programs and organizations, and for that matter, they're spending lots of money in that community. So it can be a portion of a facility. So if a company has 50,000 square feet and they want to renovate a portion of it, that, you know, that works, obviously putting a shovel in the ground. And it can be for a lease or a purchase. We get that all day long. Well, I'm going to be leasing space. And so that works, because if it's a triple net lease, it's whoever's paying the real estate taxes, and most leases are triple net leases. Now, the size of the facility, that's a big question. You know, what size? You know, we're looking at 100,000 square foot building to purchase or to put a shovel in the ground. That works. I would say the threshold is approximately 40,000 square feet. Anything less than that may not derive any tax revenue coming to the municipality. So we'll talk about that in a minute. And so on the right, what companies need to meet is certain criteria under state law. They need to be retaining jobs if they're in Massachusetts. And then what the requirement is creating new jobs. And how many new jobs under the law? One new permanent job. That's not hard to do, but I don't know if the cities and towns would be jumping for joy. However, if it's a retention project, they would be. They'll say, we want to keep this company if they have 50 jobs or 100 jobs. And then again, the requirement is one, so that's not too hard to do. The second bullet is generating real estate investment. That equals bringing new tax revenue to the city or town. Okay, just because a company is buying a building, or it wants to renovate it, the question of the day is, well, how much are you spending to renovate? We need to see a pickup in new tax revenue coming into the city or town. That's a requirement under this program, as you'll see why. And by the way, timing is very essential with all of this. Companies need to have leverage. So these tax incentives need to be secured by the town and by the state before the company signs the lease or before they close on a property. Because otherwise, as you'll hear, you know, if companies have to go through the local process, town meeting, and they've already signed a lease, the residents will say, well, they've already made a commitment. So if we don't offer them a tax deal, they're coming anyway. So it's all about leverage. So it's all about timing. It takes about, 3 to 5 months, depending if it's a city or a town or less, to secure one of these projects. And companies need to save cash more than ever now. And as a result of, again, a surge in pricing and everything else. So, but companies don't know about these programs. These are all mystery programs. How would they know about these programs? So it's important that we have them sessions like this. Next slide, please. And so the types of tax incentives, just very high level, are state tax credits and municipal tax incentives. So one is a state tax credit. If a company, now if it's a manufacturer, manufacturers are already statutorily eligible for a 3% investment tax credit through the Department of Revenue. So they would access that through a tax credit from DOR. If it's a life science company, it's a little silo oriented. They could go to the Mass Life Science Center. And then for other types of companies, there could be a potential state tax credit to reduce their corporate income taxes. The second bullet is an abandoned building tax deduction. If the building has been vacant at least 2 years, 75%, there could be a deduction available. We know a deduction is very different from tax credit. And then the third bullet, this is probably the most popular, tax increment financing, a TIP. Now, when we have, and so basically this is a discount on future taxes. A TIP is a negotiated, it's an incremental, based on the incremental assessed value pickup. So if there's a land parcel and a company puts up a building, that's only assessed value, and that's only taxes that are coming into the town. And that's what a TIP is based on. The beauty about a TIP is that the city or town doesn't lose a dime on the existing taxes. So if it's an existing building and a company wants to renovate the building, they're always going to collect full taxes on the base building, or if it's a land parcel, So it's a way for communities to bring in businesses, bring in jobs, and bring in, very importantly, tax revenue. And so a TIF, the minimum TIF is 5 years, the maximum is 20 years. In any given year, the minimum exemption is 1% and the maximum is 100%. So everyone would want a 20-year tax deal at 100% exemption, right? Because then their taxes would be 0. That's in a perfect world, but unfortunately, it's not a perfect world. So that's when discussions come into play. And there's a lot of educating, because as you can imagine, when we're working with local residents, even some local officials that are not, have not been involved with these programs, the definition of a TIF that the residents know of is a feud between two people. They have no idea it's a financial vehicle. So as you can imagine, there's a lot of educating going on. So that's basically the TIF, which is the most popular, again, because there's no loss to the municipality. Municipal personal property tax exemption, every company is subject to 2 taxes in town, 1 real estate and 1 on personal property, except the manufacturers. That's a major perk if a company is a registered manufacturer. But every other company is subject to paying personal property taxes. And so with the TIF, there could be a negotiated term with that as well. The last one is not as popular, special tax assessment. That's if the TIF doesn't really work and there's a vacant building and the company is going to spend money, but it's not going to increase the assessed value. And so there's a special tax assessment that could impact the base, what the city or town is currently collecting. And it's a staff negotiated program. And so all of these programs, again, have to go before a town meeting. If it's a town, and we have to get quorum requirements, most of the quorums are between 100 to 200. So we've got to garner support for all of that. And then, you know, of course, if it's a city, the mayor and city council. It's very important that the residents of a town are educated before they actually go in to vote on these projects. And so there's usually community information sessions held, so everyone can understand. And so it's everyone embraces the company and the program, the project, and what they're voting on. Of course, the governor has a new, as you know, I'm sure you're all following it, the governor's economic development bill. There's going to be some changes in this program, but it's quite positive. So there's more to come on that. And so once the city or town approves the tax deal, then it must be approved by the state, sir, because this is a state program. Next slide, please. So I just thought it might be helpful to show you some of the projects that we've worked on before we talk about market trends. And so this was a great project in East Bridgewater, 47 brand. And as you can see, they manufacture all the paraphernalia, hats and apparel, you know, for all of the sports teams, whether it's professional or college. And so they actually purchased the former Shaw's distribution facility a few years back, and they're doing very well. They keep growing into that building. Such a great company, family-owned business, and we had to go through town meeting and the like, and so they got a very favorable deal with that. Next slide, please. Globe Composite Solutions in Stoughton, right on Truman Avenue. Actually, so this is a great story. They were located at the facility and they wanted, it was an estimated 80,000 square foot on-site expansion. So that was great. Actually, and this is a great story. Globe Composite Solutions, you'll see the picture of the submarine. Obviously, they manufacture parts for submarines in the military. Fascinating company. And they actually just won an award from MassEcon, a Massachusetts Economic Impact Award, for their community involvement, for their jobs and everything that they're doing, the positive economic impact they have in the community. It was great. You know, they were looking elsewhere, but they decided to stay in Stoughton. And, you know, we work very closely with the local officials, and they were also very, very enjoyable and supportive to work with. Next slide. And this is the last slide. So Air Energy Group, we were just finished this project here in the city of Brockton. The company's currently located in Easton, and they conducted a site search. They wanted to stay in Easton, but there wasn't any available real estate to meet their requirements. And so in order to retain jobs in the region and in Massachusetts, they identified the site on 105 Industrial Boulevard, a brand new building. It's a GFI building. It should be- Those of you who are following some of the new developments. And so they had met, we started working with them the end of last year, and they met with the mayor and with the local officials here in the city of Brockton. And the city made it very, very clear to the company of their interest to attract them. And they were extremely supportive, and their efforts are extremely commendable as to how they work with the company. And the company was kind of on a fast track to make some corporate real estate decisions. So the city accommodated their timeline because they want them in the city. And so they're actually in the final phase of renovating. So hopefully hopefully they're gonna have a ribbon cutting ceremony soon. And so that was a great project. So a couple of other items I wanted to mention is that this is what our clients are saying. What some of the challenges are, as I'm sure you've heard this morning, in the night housing. They keep, one of our clients that I actually mentioned in my presentation, they're trying to attract some very specialized skill sets from other parts of the country, and it's not really working out because of the cost of housing. There's so much sticker shock, and it's the number one challenge, and that affects the workforce. And transportation is, I was just chatting earlier about transportation, and that's another challenge. It can be a nightmare at times. Some of our clients say, they have offices all, globally in other parts of the country. They're like, they'd rather get on a plane and get to their location that's 5 hours away or 2 hours away, and be there in less time than it takes to get to Boston, back and forth. So it's really, we don't want to hear things like this. And, we are hearing that inflation is softening a bit. But the types of companies that are active right now, as we speak, they're conducting site searches, these are recession-proof businesses, a lot of them. So, we have conversations with our colleagues and different officials and say, oh, well, it's, companies aren't, making real estate decisions right now, and, it's quiet, and it's, a time where, they're probably going to put some of their plans on hold. Well, okay, I have the complete opposite to say. And so some of the companies that we're seeing that are looking for space are food and beverage industry, appliance manufacturers, actually, because of all the housing that's projected, rentals and, affordable housing. And, we know that housing is number one. We know the Secretary of Housing has been all across, every corner of the Commonwealth. Ed Augustus, Secretary Ed Augustus, who's doing a fabulous job. And so appliance manufacturers, and that trickles down to distributors as well. Advanced manufacturers, it depends what sector they're in, but they're also putting shovels on the ground. Life science companies, biomanufacturing, gene and cell therapy companies, and many other very hot life science companies are making real estate decisions and investment decisions to continue expanding here in Massachusetts. A lot of high-tech companies, solar tech, climate tech, battery manufacturing, cybersecurity. We're currently working with a cybersecurity company right now that's looking to take over 300,000 square feet of space because this is an industry, artificial intelligence and the like. So they need space for all of the engineers and whatnot. And some of the trends on locations where for industrial manufacturing, where we're seeing a lot of these companies where they're looking and they're kind of like honing in on. We know that the city of Worcester is a hotspot. Of course, the city of Worcester is one of the fastest growing cities in the country right now. Of course, they got the Blue Sox and whatnot, so that's, very favorable as far as the amenity side. The city of Marlborough has always done phenomenal. Very, very, strong leadership in the city of Marlborough. It's called the Middlesex 3 Corridor, which is up on the Burlington, Billerica, Bedford. That's a hot spot right now because it's in close proximity to Boston, but yet it's not in the city of Boston, so it's a little bit more affordable. Obviously Brockton, Fall River, Blackstone Valley, actually, we're seeing some movement. 11 communities make up the Blackstone Valley on the Mass Pike 146 corridor. So we're seeing a lot of activity. So it's really primarily, across the Commonwealth, but a little more quiet in Western Mass. But we do see a lot happening in Holyoke and Springfield, but, and beyond, it's a little more of the bedroom community. And, tax incentives are a piece of the package, but it's not all. And, timing and predictability. What we do see is if there's a property that a company is looking at now, it could be residential, it could be commercial. The residents are getting a little bit more vocal. We're seeing that the residents are getting much more vocal and I guess opinionated. And we're seeing projects get shot down. Not any of the projects we're working on. I'm sure you all know that, being a lot of town planners are here today. And so that seems to be, a challenge, whether it's housing or some industrial, properties and, maybe a little too close to residential neighborhoods. So, that's what we're hearing and seeing more than ever. So those are things to watch, and we want our clients to get involved with going to their town meetings and their city council meetings to be more active and participate more. And resources, mass development is a wonderful resource, for other resources. There are, workforce training grants, there are energy grants, there are all types of manufacturing programs through the Mass Tech Collaborative, brownfield programs, historical tax credits. It's a little silo oriented, but there's an array of programs available. There's something for everyone. So on that note, thank you so much, for letting me share some of the resources that we have available. And thank you so much. Any questions?
I have one question,
Okay.
and maybe it's unique to Massachusetts. When I've done tax increment and financing in other states, in addition to the way you described it, seems more like a tax stabilization deal. I mean, we've used tax increment financing to take that increase in the tax revenue from the baseline to amortize that, bond against that, and use that to invest in public improvements like infrastructure, parking garages, whatever is going to be necessary to kind of be a catalyst for development.
Right.
Is that allowed under Massachusetts?
Well, actually, this program is a job creation program. So there's a TIP, well, as an example, New Hampshire has a TIP program, but it's all infrastructure related. So that's a different program. So there are different.
I mean, just by definition, tax increment financing.
Right.
So Massachusetts, the equivalent of that is a DIP.
I understand that, I know, but there's also statutory language. I'm just trying to understand.
Right,
Right.
so it's not commonly used, it could be, to answer your question, it could be. But it's really focused on helping the company offset,
No,
the
I
end user.
understand all that.
But to answer your question, it's open for discussion.
You can create a TIF zone in the community that is plowed into.
Anybody else have any questions?
Is the state tax credit contingent on the municipal tip?
If there's as I mentioned, there's more or less 3 state tax credits. If the company's a manufacturer, they're eligible to capture a 3% investment tax credit if they're a registered manufacturer with the Department of Revenue. That's statutory, so it doesn't have to be tied into a TIP. The Mass Life Science Center, if it's a life science company, they have to go to the Mass Life Science Center for a state tax credit, does not have to be tied in with the TIP. If a company is looking for a state tax credit under this program, and that would be a company that's a research and development company or a distributor, a company that's a non-manufacturer, the state does like to see some type of local participation with the TIP. So it depends on what industry and all of that.
Any other questions?
Obviously, the industry will be more difficult next year because of more state and local resources going to housing. I was talking to Mass Development, and they asked me, we were to earmark the approach this year because the government is going to take some of the money there for Mass Development, put to housing.
Right, we haven't really heard that from the manufacturers and the life science companies, because don't forget, there's like $1 billion in that range that's being focused for life sciences as well, and under the governor's economic development bill. So they're really trying to create programs. There's approximately 163 bills, under the governor's economic development bill that really, positively impacts many different sectors and industries. So we haven't heard that yet.
I was just at the place where the governor was in Kingston. So the $4.5 million bond bill that's being proposed, isn't that
For what,
for housing?
okay, the housing.
Isn't that to help in regards to some of these companies coming and having?
Well, right, as I mentioned, the number one challenge for what the companies are saying is housing, yes. So because they can't attract, the town with the skills, or if, people are looking to, get that upward mobility, they're leasing and now they want to buy a house, or vice versa, they're coming out of school. If they can't afford to buy a home, so yes, it's going to really.
It's not necessarily affordable housing, it's trying to make housing more affordable.
Right, market rate, that's right, market rate housing. It's just astronomical, right now, if you don't know.
Anyone else? And we have some information. Oh, I'm sorry.
In terms of making those decisions in the sense of the companies, in terms of the town or the city property taxes, what percentage of that is their budget in the sense of that, is it more all things being equal, we're gonna go with the community that's offering a better tip? Or is tip such a substantial part of their operating budget that having a decrease anywhere would be a significant reason to make the decision to go there?
Right, well, it's really focused on the real estate expansion project. Okay, so, the project could start off to be a $50 million project. They want to construct a 100,000 square foot building, a 200,000. Now the price tag is going, it was 50 million, now it's 60, 65 million. And then the companies are looking for ways to offset that investment. Can we make this investment in this community or not? Does it make financial and economic sense?
Right,
So,
but I mean, what are the property taxes on, let's say, $50 million structure, 150,000 maybe, something like that? Is that,
as an example,
yeah, but what I'm asking is, if they're doing a $50 million project, the decrease in cost by 150 doesn't seem to amount too much. I mean, I understand that's going to be on an annual basis, but even so.
right,
So what I'm asking is, in terms of their operations, how does TIP help make them, get them to a decision, in the sense of it's such a significant part of their operating budget that they need this for that to happen, or is it, like I said, all things being equal, okay, we've got a $50 million project, we'd love to save the $150,000. And so we're gonna go, even though it's penny change.
right.
Will change for in the big picture.
Well, it's, every penny makes a difference to these companies, but they need this to offset their project costs. Basically, so they need it, otherwise they're not going to move forward with the project. So that's really what it all boils down to, because then it doesn't become, then it's cost prohibitive, more or less. So, having this tool in place helps them turn the project into reality and move forward with it. Does that answer your question?
Probably not.
Okay.
Well, because again, $150,000 versus 50 million,
Mhm.
I'm not sure that the 150,000 makes or breaks the project.
Well, it does, it does.
And that's why I'm curious about
Yes.
is in the sense of why that small amount of money, relatively speaking, would make or break the project.
Right, well, every company, all these companies we're working with are very financially prudent. And so it can help them, to invest in more machinery, equipment, people, it's, they're taking those dollars in order to keep moving forward with the project. So, every company has a little different thought process, but at the end of the day, they need this tax incentive, otherwise, they wouldn't go through this whole exhaustive process of going through town meeting and everything else.
Yeah, and then plan it forward, right? So $150,000 for a 15-year tip, I mean, that's real money if you plan it for 15 years. So, I mean, these projects that you see going on in downtown, they're giving 10-year tips. I mean, that's real savings to the project. They can save, let's say $400,000 in taxes. I mean, that's money that they can, use elsewhere. in the
Real
project.
fast, right?
Yeah, I want to keep us on track, so Lynn will be here after if you have further questions. I want to be
Thank you.
respectful
Thank you.
of people's time, shooting to be done by 1. With that, I'm gonna hand it to Don to just give a,
I'm gonna cover. I'm gonna cover.
okay, you gonna cover it?
Yeah, all right, I'm gonna breeze through this rather quickly so we can jump to the next item, which is gonna be a little bit more. So, that said, our plates here in the Economic Development Department are pretty full. And we're engaged in something like a dozen projects that we're either working on now or currently have in the pipeline. So, some more further along than others. So, we're definitely staying busy and continue to try to deliver more projects for the region. Keeping things short, you'll see on the list on our agenda some familiar projects that have reemerged as ongoing projects as we get deeper into them. So obviously don't need to go through each of those, but considering time, we do have a couple of new items that the committee hasn't heard about yet. So I guess I'll just highlight those, Mr. Chairman. The East Bridgewater Business Assistance Project, OCPC is in the process of providing the town with business assistance services to support and strengthen its local economy. So East Bridgewater had secured funding for this through a legislative earmark and then contracted with us at OCPC to provide those services. So essentially, we're going to be examining East Bridgewater's role in business development and then providing direct assistance with things like marketing and promotion activities. So branding, web content, developing surveys and other materials and stuff like that. The other item on the agenda not discussed previously, the Plymouth Holtec Master Plan. OCPC is waiting on an EDA award for the town of Plymouth to prepare a master plan for the 1,500-acre vacant portion of the Holtec property, which is the former Pilgrim Nuclear Power Station site. This is going to be a real sort of a collaboration between Holtec International and the Plymouth Foundation to essentially figure out what the best possible use for this area could be, and what type of impact it could present to the town. I know that the planning process is going to be a very heavy emphasis on public engagement, with essentially there needing to be a consensus on the preferred development plan. And that is based on prioritization of recapturing those economic losses resulting from the plant closure back in 2019. I know, Mr. Chairman, do you want me to mention the water study real quick? So our regional water study has been underway for some time here at OCPC. So for those of you on the committee that aren't up to speed on this, this is a project that we received funding for from the EDA last year to essentially prepare a regional water plan for the OCPC district. This began as a $470,000 award from the EDA and was fortunately supplemented by the Central Plymouth County Water District Commission and the South Shore Chamber, as well as a state earmark, I believe, by Senator Brady to total almost $1 million, $940,000 project. So our region, like many others, faces pretty critical water challenges, and so things like decreasing well depths, rising demand that comes with new development, water quality issues and ecological damages and that sort of thing. So in that vein, OCPC was successful with an application to the EDA to work specifically on these issues and study them a bit further for our region. Overall, I guess it's, this is really a joint effort to sort of plan for future water supply and tackle some of the immediate vulnerabilities that currently exist. And at the table with us for those conversations are 17 different communities, electeds, regulators, different environmental groups, businesses, all sort of working together to help ensure affordable, safe, and abundant water that will be sustainable for a long time. So, and once completed, the project is essentially, it'll essentially develop a sustainable water resource supply plan for long-term future regional development that we can use going forward. So, and I think currently, our planning consultant, CDM Smith, is working with the project steering committee and OCPC to start to identify goals and objectives and any issues or concerns through the public process, which I believe starts at the end of June. So if anyone wants to know more about that, Joanne Zigmund, who is our senior comprehensive planner, she's actually the PM on this, the project manager. So it's not me, but if someone wants to know more about this, feel free to ask our team, or you can go onto the website. We put all that information on the website for you to check out too. So that's about it.
Just this week, so if you've already look at it again, provide some feedback for us. Let us know if you find what you're looking for.
That's all I got, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks. Next is a discussion. The comprehensive development strategy plan needs to be updated in 2025. It's done every 5 years. You can imagine this one was done pre-COVID, so many of these priorities, objectives, goals probably were blown out by what happened as a result of COVID. But as as Nick just spoke about and Lynn spoke about, infrastructure is important both for attracting businesses. Those of us that are meeting the requirements of MBTA communities have questions about infrastructure capacity. I'm a little bit more cynical that the regional water plan is not going to solve the regional water issues. So looking at infrastructure is something that needs to be continued to be evaluated. And looking outside the region, we're talking with Taunton as an example in Bridgewater. But what I would like to do is just get some thoughts, maybe start with our municipal members and then some of our business owners. Looking forward to the next meeting. What are we identifying to be our priorities and objectives and goals going forward with the next 5-year plan? So we'll start with you. You're municipal, right?
Yes.
Yeah, no.
Didn't expect it. So, from an infrastructure standpoint.
Doesn't have to be infrastructure, just
So,
your
yeah.
goals.
Stephanie Danielson, the planning director for Easton, we did pass our MBTA zoning on Monday. It was a, thank you. The district was scaled back significantly from where we started, in an effort to get it passed. It was 50 vote margin. From an infrastructure standpoint, Easton's been making a lot of investments in infrastructure, in particular, the strip of Washington Street between Belmont and Depot Street. We're seeing some development there as a result, not as much as we'd like to see. So that's an area of focus for us, trying to figure out what we need to do if there's further zoning changes that need to be done. Our Five Corners district, which is from Depot Street to Eastman Street. So at the other end is doing quite well. We made zoning modifications to modernize the zoning there and encourage infill development and new development, allowing for more density than what has been allowed in the past. It is one of the areas that are MBTA subjects are located. So we're currently underway. The sewer was installed in 2020, and we are expanding. We have plenty of capacity for Mansfield to treat, and we're not taking full advantage of that. So we need another pump station that will allow us to tie in more. But we're seeing a lot of growth and activity here. And again, I think the target, and then sewer treatment is one of our biggest challenges. We don't have a challenge with water other than, that situation, but I've been on top of that. We have our new treatment plants in, but we do not have sewer in our industrial park, and that is restricting growth and development there. It's not a large park, and there's not a lot of opportunity for growth, but there could be additional growth there.
Thanks. And again, I don't want to limit this just to infrastructure. So Lisa and Hanson, what would you like to see included in the next 5-year plan?
Well, we have the light control Hawks Ave property. That has actually, there was brownfields grant there, but there's complications that the town's got ownership of that. We do have an undertaking for brownfields assessment, which actually is completed. So I'd really like to see that included in the 5-year plan, because right now it's 2 large warehouse style buildings on property. that really could, that with the right uh, business in there, could really do a lot for the town, and that's our town.
Hey, Yvonne?
We're, looking for a few 100,000 more gallons per day of water capacity. The town typically has water mains every summer. We don't have a pressing urgent need, but it's something we need to plan for and make happen with time. We're looking to MWA connections and or Brockton connections for that.
And is there another municipality? Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so we have both the water and the sewer moratorium. So we're out of capacity in terms of water. We're looking for a well site. So it'll be a number of years before we can look to have people, working with the town to reinvest. But we are working with, possible redevelopment of the small Kingston collection. And, we're working on a study of our 3-day corridor through OCPC to give us some incentives and goals. So trying to implement that plan once it's done, is something that we add to the plan.
Charlie?
Maximize the development along the North Bedford Street sewer corridor once that work is completed, hopefully by the end of 2025. We're gonna need the tax revenue simply because there's no money coming in from the state or from local receipts anymore that we're seeing increases. So we don't want it to come on our residents. We need to, if we're gonna see some growth in the tax base, it has to be with whatever commercial industrial development happens there. We've got biggest municipal project since the junior high school back in 09 and 10. We're going to be rehabbing our elementary school for $80 or $100 million, probably in 28 or 29. Other than that, I think sustainability in terms of working as a town, but also working as individuals and families and households and businesses. Because we can make, we can try and do on an individual basis remediation that's climate change, but I think it's more going to be a situation that all of us have to deal with climate change that is coming and how we minimize the damage that's being caused by that. In terms of infrastructure, in terms of health and everything else. And then fourth would be sustainability. One aspect, making the town more livable, making it more options for sidewalks and pedestrians and bicyclists. Our intersections are at 18 need to be made safer.
I'm gonna pick on you, John, from the business community. Because you're touching a couple of different communities.
Yeah, I would see, Brockton specifically, Kmart Plaza, some kind of development in that whole area, from Old Kilby to Kmart. I think it's a nice gateway into the city. I just can't keep getting past the point of all this economic development, but there's no housing. So it'd be great if we could put $1 billion worth of economic development together. So there's nobody that can staff it. It's kind of difficult, so I think all this development is going to need housing.
I'd like to echo that. I thought of it afterwards. Housing is a big issue. It needs to, and just keeping the businesses that we have because they can't keep their workforce full because of the cost of housing.
No.
And it's not just in our town. It's
Just having gone through the MBTA communities and hearing people say we don't have a housing crisis, but then BSU tells me that they can't attract staff and faculty because there's no housing. You just want to kill yourself.
yeah.
Also, to your point at the beginning, and I look around the room, I think Stephanie and I were the only two here the last time we were at the CEDS plan. I wouldn't dismiss that we didn't get a lot accomplished.
I didn't mean accomplish, it's just the priorities
I
and
think
goals.
we should go back and revisit where we are against that and what we've accomplished, because I think that we hear the same themes coming up. Again, we didn't maybe invest in the right places during COVID, so some of that may be a good starting point, looking back on how much time and effort went into that place.
Yeah, and I think for purposes of today's conversation, this is, just preliminary discussion, just kind of picking people's brains about what's out there. I know we have a year until our 5-year plan lapses, so this is helpful for us as we begin to brainstorm and look at some things about which direction we're going to go with that.
I know there's a section on transportation, so I think, you know, already that and GATRA are taking some great strides to create that interconnectivity. The Senate has clearly put an emphasis on that in the Senate version of the budget. But, you know, part of nobody has enough housing, but there are people living in certain areas that could get to jobs in other areas if we could make that connectivity happen. So I think we still need to look at how we're structuring our transportation system.
Is the water study looking at the economics of the desalination plant that Brockton has access to?
We think it's been on the table, but I think any of us that have looked at it say the economics don't make a lot of sense. It's like Brockton kind of be happy to have somebody take it.
Yeah, they're in the process of conducting local interviews. So that's gonna be starting soon, so, you know, the Brockton issue relative to Aquarius is one of the items to be looking at. So they're early into that stage.
Anyone else want to share what you'd like to see as goals, priorities, objectives? John, go ahead.
Did you guys cover Halifax? Do we cover Halifax too?
Yes.
So downtown Halifax, small town. There's a lot of development, maybe happening, waiting for sale, there's things happening. Is there any way to put Main Streets programs in these small towns? So when development does happen, we're maximizing even small development.
Yeah, something like that should be in the master plan, so that's an objective of the master plan, there's certainly funds to look at that. You gotta go through one stop program, to see if there's abilities to get funding to look at downtown revitalization plans. The key to looking at where the community is relative to what their goals and priorities are, so they have a master plan. And determine whether that's a priority to be set in a master plan, then move forward from there.
I think to Don's point is that many communities have comprehensive master plans. They finish it and it sits on a shelf. So it's the implementation of that, which is the struggle. And I think that's one of the things that, you know, I'm hoping to do here is that you're going back to your communities and saying, where are we with respect to our master plan? And if it's not being implemented, why? But we've got maybe 10 minutes left. Does anyone else have, I know we have a lot of workforce development people that would love to see more businesses coming in, and so just interested in your thoughts.
I mean, we face similar issues that you guys have all heard from the past, an aging workforce, addressing the skills gap, connection with the workforce boards, the career centers that are here, making people understand what services we bring to the table for free, we owe them. That's the pitch that I'm sure you've heard. If not, haven't heard, I can say it again. It's getting businesses to come to us for our services and addressing those things. I have it on my agenda. John, I wanted to talk to you after this. I met Peter Brady last week at his establishment, which was pretty fascinating. So that doesn't solve any major goal. Highlight for me. So.
Yeah, the workforce housing issue is what we hear. I work in the South Shore, which is the communities around Route 3 corridor. We don't have Brockton, Massachusetts, but the issue we hear every day, multiple times a day, there's no shortage of jobs here. In this region, the greater region, south of Boston, Rhode Island, whatever, there are no shortage of jobs. The shortage is housing. There's nowhere for people to live. An example could be right now, just on the South Shore, we have 4 separate individual shelters for migrants. And we're tasked with helping them navigate the employment process. And we're using our own regional dollars to do that, training them with an employer partner. Problem is, the employers want them, we want to provide training and make a match, but they can't afford to live here. Not only can they not afford to live in southeastern Massachusetts, but the state as a whole, we're losing them to Rhode Island, we're losing them to upstate New York, to southern Maine. So these infrastructure challenges we hear, municipalities surrounding water and planning, all of that cumulatively means we have a workforce housing crisis. And it was on the horizon the last time this plan was done, and today it's here. This morning, I also attended the speech that Governor Haley did. And housing is the blanket that covers every single problem we have right now. We will lose our competitive edge as a business magnet economy if we can't solve housing. The South Shore is really the tip of the spear. We have 3 communities now on the South Shore where people can't boomerang. We can't grow up in that community, come back, dual income. That's Milton, Cohasset, and Hingham. The over-under is $1 million now to get us started. That's a crisis on Main Street. That is a crisis in our industrial parks. We are going to be losing businesses if we can't find a way to retain staff. So it's no longer something we're forecasting. It's here today.
And I think, you know, just having been through it, there's so much education that needs to be done around just what the definition of affordable housing is, because people use it like, you know, it's the dog whistle. And, you know, affordable housing is defined as being at 80% or less of area median income. And in Bridgewater, area median income is about $115,000. So there's people that work in town hall that I guess are eligible for affordable housing, but that is the number one challenge that we have at the municipal level, is just educating people on what that means, because we get a lot of housing for those people.
Yeah, and for people's perception, and whether it's multifamily, whatever, I mean, they're talking about migrants. And you're working with them to get them jobs and acclimated and housed, and yet that's such a stigma that people throw out for multifamily housing. Like, we don't want, I'm sorry, those people.
I hear it all the time.
You can hear it. Someone actually used the word slum, and they were shouting it out at our meeting.
Well, slum is Kmart Plaza.
It's just, you know, it's a nice, it's very good.
We did analysis of employment gap. Could we take the number of migrants we have currently housed in the South Shore, it's about 200, working development. We have enough jobs, keep them here. We could give each of them 5 jobs. Our economy can absorb them, we need them.
They're not taking jobs away from people.
Exactly.
They're not, very frustrating situation.
That's frustrating to hear on our end of the workforce. Oh, they're taking it, and that's it. You could add that job 5 years ago. You don't want to work. You know, so the thing about the recent arrival, they're very interested in. The issue, one issue we face is the English, obviously. And, you know, that there's just not enough English training programs around. When you talk to the Adult Learning Center, they have a year waiting. That was a problem before this in the city. So that's a challenge we have, is that gap of, we have people willing and ready to work, but, you know, for an employer to take that person on with safety concerns and everything else, with understanding the language that we need to address as well. So that's part of it.
So I would like to suggest that for our next meeting, maybe we focus conversation on infrastructure, housing, and transportation, because they all fit together. And I think, you know, these are regional issues, they're statewide issues, and we'll look to bring in some people to talk about it, so I don't have to talk about it. But I mean, I think it's important for this group as a strategy to perhaps be a little bit more political in what we're trying to accomplish. Because, I mean, those of us in municipal government are dealing with it on a daily basis, but you're all dealing with it too. And then if you're living in a community, you're dealing with it. If you're an employer, you're dealing with it. So that's just a suggestion. It's not a requirement. They can poll you all afterwards as to what your thoughts are, but I want to be respectful that it's 1 o'clock.
Yeah, just one other thing, I'd encourage you to go to the OCP website, just to look up the CEDS 2025, to see what the last 5 years goals and objectives were outlined in that document. If you can't find it, Nick will help you with that. So you can all get a copy of that, you can look at what the previous goals and objectives were. I think we'll stick to the outline of most of them, but there'll be some revisions to some of them, add a few additional ones to ones that are already there, but take a look at that and to give you some more information on what was done in the past.
Yeah, and I would say, you know, yeah, feel free to jump onto the website and take a peek at it. They're definitely, looking at them in front of me, I know that there are definitely ones that are good, and we're going to want to have reemerge in the next plan. But I think what Don mentioned, I think we're definitely missing a few things. So I think it's going to be about adding a few other things to make it a bit stronger. But what we have on here is a good start. So and we'll tweak it from there.
What's the name of that document again?
It's the CEDS, 2020 to 2025 plan. And if you go to our, yeah, I'll send it to folks after we wrap up. But if you go to the webpage and go to our economic development section, there's a link that takes you to CEDS stuff. It's all in there.
That's comprehensive economic development strategy.
If there's a motion to adjourn.
No business, but no.
There's no business. This wasn't a business.
Yeah.
Motion.
That was.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
Just remind you, it's here. If you have questions.
Thank you.
Everybody.
Oh.
Yeah.